I think it's about time we stop trying to apply a metric to quote-unquote the perfect game. Let me unpack that real quick. Probably not real quick, let's just be real. The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild just launched, and with it came an avalanche of perfect scores from a very large list of gaming publications. Forbes, Giant Bomb, Game Informer, Polygon, GameSpot, IGN, just to name a few of the more popular sites, gave this game the equivalent of a 10 out of 10 score with respect to each of their individual numbers used. Now, there's a lot to be said about the fact that many of these sites also gave the generally disliked Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword a similar glowing commendation, but that's a whole different story, and I want to at least try to stay on topic here. The immediate reaction in general was a robust outcry that this new Zelda could not possibly be a perfect game, which is something I'm thinking needs to stop. We need to stop reading reviews under the notion that a perfect score means a perfect game. Why do we need to do this? Because a perfect game does not exist. Just as a perfect meal does not exist, nor a perfect book, nor a perfect movie, etc., etc. Stick with me here, I'm not trying to imply that there are not immensely great things in all mediums. Works of art and artistry that are almost universally considered cultural peaks, titans, monuments. What I'm saying is that regardless of how almost universally these works are praised, they will never please every single person that will ever exist. And if you heard that and thought, well, yeah, of course not, then good, we're on the same page. While I very firmly believe that the standard number rating system for game reviews is archaic and detrimental to constructive conversation and discussion surrounding the industry and especially big new releases, I also think that since it's more or less here to stay, it's important to adjust how we view it to be better able to use this information as it was intended to be used, as a review, for the consumer to look at and gauge whether or not the game is worth a purchase to them. A perfect score in a game review is not a perfect score on a geography test. The game didn't check all the correct multiple choice questions and get extra credit for specifying the differences between Portland, Maine and Portland, Oregon. What a reviewer is saying when they slap that shiny gold 10 out of 10 on the end of their usually long, thought out and researched 1,000 or so words on the game is less of a "this game is flawless" and more of a "any missteps that this game had, any flaws that I found, totally negligible to the positives." If you don't find that to make sense, if you think that a 10 out of 10 should only be reserved for a game with 0 flaws in it, then herein lies the fallacy. As I stated earlier, this flawless game will never exist because every human will perceive things differently. Something that one person loves, another will inherently think poorly designed and thus dislike it. So, since a true 10 out of 10 can never exist, let's knock 10 right off the scale because we'll never use it, right? But if we're never gonna reach a 10, then why not just make it a scale of 9, because having an unattainable number makes absolutely no sense. But then games can get a 9 out of 9, which would be, yeah, you guessed it, a perfect score. And so on and so forth until, well, hey, it's magic, we don't use stupid number rating systems because they boil down a massive amount of thought process and discussion to a few digits that boil it down even further to just saying it was good or it wasn't good. I mean, the whole thing is made more ridiculous by the fact that most readers of these sites consider a 6 out of 10 to be an utter flop of a game, and who can blame them? IGN has become a long-running meme for its tendency to score games almost exclusively between 7 and 10. So anything that dips out of that range is not the norm, it's the exception, and in this case, the exceptionally bad game. Now, more back on topic, I don't want this to come off as me throwing shade at either gaming publications nor their readers and fans. In general, this whole system is prone to miscommunication, which leaves both sides unnecessarily at odds with each other. My message, I suppose, is mostly to the readers and fans, to the viewers and listeners of video reviews and podcasts. When a perfect score is granted, please understand that there is no declaration of perfection actually being made. I'll use myself as an example. To me, The Witness is a 10 out of 10 game, without question. If I was writing for IGN at the time that The Witness came out and my editor shot me an email that said, "We have a review copy of The Witness, you'll be reviewing it, you are required to put a number rating at the end," I without question would have given it a 10 out of 10 because my experience was just that good. The Witness has flaws and I experienced many of them, but the overall gravity of how good everything else was outweighed those flaws with such immensity that I would have no problem with submitting a quote-unquote perfect score for my review. I may step on a few people's toes by stating that perfection can't be achieved. But honestly, just look at the criteria, especially for video games. What's the perfect length for a video game? Don't even try and tell me you can answer that definitively. Even if there was a poll that only had options for just 5, 10, 20, and 40 plus hours, I feel pretty confident that none of those would be a clear winner by any large margin. And that's just game length, one tiny factor that doesn't even have to do with design or genre or art style or any of the things that make a game a game. Or if you want a real big one, many people would dock Zelda at least a whole point for poor performance issues, such as the notable frame drops in towns on the Wii U version or the inconsistent frame rate on the docked Switch version. To me, personally, aside from the game looking slightly worse for a few seconds, it hasn't impacted my experience in any major way to warrant docking any points. To me, I understand that Nintendo makes consoles with limited power, and my expectations for visuals and performance are lower than that of a PC game, for example. Maybe if it happened often during bosses, it would hamper my ability to play the game, but a short stutter while I'm paragliding into a town doesn't bother me. To somebody, that'll be upsetting. To others, it won't affect them at all. That's why I believe that the 10 out of 10 is never meant to be a claim of perfection. It's an indication of high quality, perhaps the highest quality that the reviewer has ever seen. And this goes back to that quick note on IGN's rating system being somewhat of a joke. What if we did see that full scale utilized more often? What if we saw a frequency of numbers throughout the entire range? Perhaps these top scores would be much more contextualized and actually aid the articles and reviews, giving readers more interest in hearing the expanded thoughts as opposed to just seeing another 9 out of 10 or 10 out of 10. Personally, I haven't made my way through the entirety of Zelda yet, but what I've played has been pretty incredible. I would go as far as to say that if this game keeps bombarding me with awesome things all the way through to the end, then yeah, I'm inclined to agree with the majority of the reviewers out there. It's very possibly 10 out of 10 material, but like I said before, take that for what it's actually worth. Thanks for watching as always, and a big thank you to my Patreon supporters. You can see their names on screen right now, and you can click the link to head to patreon.com/Sunder to join them. If you really like the video, consider hitting the like button. Helps me get shared on the sidebars, and that's all nice and good. And my name has been Sunder, and I'll catch you next time. Peace.